Welcome to the Rethink and Return podcast. My name is Jason Shepard. Every week, we rethink things and return to God's original intention and His design. We generally do 2 recordings a week. One, we revisit a passage of Scripture that thousands of people are studying together in a Sunday gathering or in a house church, and we're just going to dig more deeply into these things that we didn't get to talk about enough or want to talk about more that we're wrestling with. And then we do another recording where we're just working out leadership things, being a pastor and ministry or leading stuff, and wrestling with tensions of how we live like that in our world today. So we'd love for you to like this, subscribe to it, share it with other people. Enjoy the podcast. We'll see you soon. Hey, thanks for joining us for the Rethink and Return podcast. I love having conversations with people that I love about life and church and all the things that God's doing around the world. And when I have good friends coming to town that are willing to sit down and have a conversation, man, it's awesome. And I have that today. My amigo, Peter Mutabazi. Hey, Peter.
Hey, thank you for having me here. It's really a joy.
Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah.
So, Peter, you came in this weekend. You spoke at Church Project on the stage with us yesterday. It's been great having you and 4 of your kids here, your 4 youngest. And, man, we've known each other now, I don't know, 13 years. Is that what we figured out?
Yeah, I think 14 years.
Okay, good. I'll take every year above that. That's good. So I'm going to round up to 15, almost 15 years. But it's cool. I mean, we met on a trip somewhere around the world. Can't remember where. But I was really just drawn to your life, your heart, your humility. And really back then, I think almost 15 years ago, your life was in a different place. And it's taken some big turns since then, you know.
Right.
But I remember, getting to know you. And, man, I just not only did I love your story, which we won't get into here because people can find it in a lot of places. We shared it yesterday. But man, your heart is really unique. I get to know a lot of great people, and I know people who love the Lord and love His work and have committed their life to it. But I just want to tell you, man, you being around you, every time I'm around you, it challenges me, encourages me, comparatively discourages me because I see, man, this guy is really far ahead of where I want to be. I mean, you're giving me a good picture of Christ ahead of me, and I just want to tell you that in front of people. I love and respect you.
Well, thank you, too. As you said, I travel, yes. I get to travel with thousands of pastors, But there are some times where you get to meet that one special one that you connect. You can't connect with everyone, And the first time we met, we connected. And since then, it's really been a joy. At my lows, I've shown up. At my highs, I've shown up. And so thank you for truly being there for me for all these years.
Oh, man. I think, thank you for saying that. And I feel that way about you, too. And I think there's some people who are like, hey, well, one, we're almost exactly the same age, which some of our friends are mutual friends. We're sort of all in this, 51-year-old, place right now, which is wild. But when I find people who are living their life for the Lord and I trust them, I mean, I really hold on to that. And God's given me a few people like that in my life. And like when you're in town or you'll come into town and we get to talk about stuff, you're somebody I trust. And I think every pastor needs that. You see even more pastors than I do, and I spend a lot of time with pastors. So let's talk about that for a minute. Every study that I see shows me that pastors are lonely. Right? And so you know it from the conversations you have with pastors. I know it too. The studies will tell us that. Carrie Newhoff, Ed Stetzer, everybody's telling us about it. And I believe it. But I don't think it has to be that way. And so I'm not lonely. I mean, I think everybody wants something deeper in friendships or they want something else. We're not in heaven yet. But I know I have people that I can count on that love me and would be there for me. And I'm in regular conversations and relationships with people in my life, which is good for me. Why do you think pastors are so lonely?
Oh, wow, that's a tough question. But in my little experience, I think pastors like you, when you get to share your day-to-day life of how you parent, the challenges you've had, that makes you real, but also that gives you an opportunity for people to feel like, he's walked my journey. He understands.
Yeah.
And there's a way where you feel those walls kind of broken because you feel you've shared your life that much. They know your lows and highs, that you're not afraid to be part of that or let your life be part of that, And I think for me, in my experience, what I've watched is sometimes pastors who've kind of lived here, and there's a separate between what their lives
Yeah.
are and the congregation, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's where sometimes you create walls that they hold on that. And yes, down the road, you don't know how to really kind of bring your life to the day-to-day life of someone
Yeah.
who sits in your pews, that I think sometimes can be lonely. So you're holding back.
Yeah, you're right.
You don't have people to share your day-to-day life, and that creates a way of, man, you know, they get to see the man in the pulpit, you know,
Yeah.
but they don't really get to see their lives
Yeah.
at where it demonstrates the best to a regular Joe, if I may say.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, and I know everybody in our church, especially as it's gotten big and bigger and keeps growing. They can't know my life personally, but some people here know my life really, really well, and but I do live, and maybe it's because I planted this church for part of the purpose of being able to be free and authentic. But I do live pretty freely here, right? I mean, people, I think, here know my strengths, know my weaknesses, know my real self. But there was a time in the church world where I did feel that way, where I felt like, man, I got to stop my authenticity somewhere. And I don't even think for a lot of guys that means that they're hiding sin.
Right. No.
I just think that means, hey, because people can be brutal. And so you just sort of want to stay on the edge. Like, hey, I'm going to provide your Sunday for you, and I'll do whatever I need to do for that to happen. But whatever is beyond that, you don't really need to know me, you know? And I think that's a lonely place for pastors to be. I don't want to live that way anymore. I wouldn't go back.
Absolutely. Or sometimes they love their congregation so much that sometimes they're afraid of ruffling those feathers,
Yeah.
you know? So they hold back, you know, I don't want to get in any conflict with anyone, you know?
Yeah.
But in that way, it really creates that reach where you feel you're on one side and you have your congregation on the other side.
Yeah.
And the two don't match, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that creates unhealthy relationship in some way.
Yeah.
That you want to protect them so much that you're afraid them knowing your laws, and you know, and especially our laws, that maybe they discredit you, or in a way that creates that loneliness in some way.
Yeah, that's right. Like, could my weaknesses or my authenticity hurt the church? And, our hidden sins could for sure, but I don't think our humanity itself can hurt the church. Our hidden sins can hurt a church and will, but just being human and being authentic, I think, for me, it's been one of the most refreshing things about my church. And by the way, I think if I live that way, that's why, like, you've gotten to know our church a little bit, and you've just seen, like, that's the culture of our entire church. People are they're real. Nobody has a facade. Nobody's trying to impress anybody, you know? I don't know. Maybe you've sensed that.
No, I think for me, the one thing I love about when I visit your church, that I don't get to hang out with you the most. I get to hang out with the other members of families and stuff. And for me, that's kind of where I see that the life you live, how it's emulated on the other side. Like there's no Pastor B living a different life. Like, oh, it's all the same.
Yeah.
But also that they know you so well in a way that they truly live their life to the fully. And I feel for me that creates a culture for everyone, you know. If my pastor can be honest and expects me this, I ought to do the same. And so for me, I'm able to see your church be, through other people's lens.
That's good.
Which is kind of cool, that they really get to see. And there's no difference for me between you and what they are showing on the other end.
Yeah.
And that shows one culture.
That encourages me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know, Friday night you hang out with one of our pastors on our team and his family, or much of the day Friday, and then I saw you Saturday night with my family, and then last night you were at a house church, and the house church pastor texted me, and he said, man, I just spent 3 hours with Peter and his family, and he talked about you, and you texted me and said, hey, I was with this guy, I love him. I mean, why don't you, since you have a little bit of insight into our church, could you just talk about what you see in like a house church? Like you last night go to a house church. You've been to others before when you're here, different ones. I think last night was a different one you visited, right? First time at that one?
Every time I come, I go to a different church, yeah.
Yeah, and so you were at this house church last night. What are you seeing there? What is a house church for you?
Well, let me begin with my own family.
Perfect.
I've got little kids, and then I've got teenagers. Yeah. And sometimes going to a church where we only have one opportunity to go, I feel like sometimes my kids lose an opportunity to be fed into or shepherded to somehow, you know. And I love that the way you have house church, that truly, not only are they just ministering to each other, but to the family. There's one that I went to that was really cool the last time I was here. I think someone was struggling with what you told that Sunday, like truly not questioning, but really wanting to know deeper, because, on a typical Sunday, you can't explain everything about whatever,
perfect.
But for me, it was really neat to see that the house church was able to answer those questions that you could not answer. It's not like you weren't there, but they got the answers from the people that they know the most. But also they were able to be vulnerable to say, I'm questioning this. How do I go about it? You know? And for me, seeing a house church step in on that, for me, was just really kind of full circle in a way, that not only do we have a pastor who gets to teach on Sunday, but we have church where we can go, where we feel the holes in the gospel that we don't understand
so good
are being felt and filled in. And that for me was really special. Again, I'm a single dad with little kids. Sometimes going anywhere can be like, oh, no, I can't. But for me, the house church provides that there's a meal, that there's a daycare kind of for someone to really be there while you're sharing. And for me, I felt like that's where I was fed the most than any other time that I'm here, that they know you, they know your needs, that you get to share. And for me, that was something truly unique. That every time I come here, I'm really looking forward to go to another family, because every time I get to learn something new, But here's the part. It involves my family. It's not just me, but it involves my family. And that is the unique part of house churches that you are having, truly making a difference to the entire family in a way.
Man, I'm so encouraged to hear that. And it rings true with what I consistently hear, but it confirms what we're going after, right? Like we say, like Sunday, as far as a passage of scripture goes, a proper sermon creates tension between heaven and earth. Like a sermon saying, here's what heaven's saying to us. And house church is the place where we wrestle that out. Like, I don't know if I believe that, or I don't understand it, or I'm not choosing to live that way right now. And in a community, we wrestle that out together. So that encourages me. And then also, I mean, you've seen this around the world more than me, but I would hear missionary kids move back here and say, when we were on the mission field in another country, I would run through the living room, and my parents would be in the living room with their Bibles open, praying with other people, having a conversation about Jesus. And I, for all the churches I had been a part of before Church Project, I'm like, well, that's not happening here.
Right.
But now at Church Project, I mean, your kids could say that from the times they're in house church. Everybody else's kids could say that. Like, my parents are in the living room with people older than them, younger than them, different color skin than them, different backgrounds, married, unmarried, and they have in common Jesus, and they're loving each other. Like, that's what we're going after. And so,
And here's the unique part too, that even so the cool thing is, like, yes, for me as a parent and as an adult, I was being fed and shepherded too, and going deeper to what we shared on Sunday. But my kids are receiving the same. They are not just playing somewhere.
That's right.
They truly also, so you're mirroring both the parent and the kids' Sunday school.
That's right.
So when it comes to Sunday school, it's not something like, something out there. No, they're already practicing that also in the house group.
Right.
Which is something really unique and very, very few. My job is I get to speak in churches every Sunday, but I would say you're one unique one that I've never had any church that does how you do it. And for me, coming here, bringing my family is more of, man, I gotta take my kids. Why? Because I know those opportunities for them to be part of, but also that they're not excluded in some way.
That's cool.
That really makes that unique of having a house church.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
The idea would be every week we want our kids to memorize the scripture. So they do it on Sunday morning, wherever they are, but also in house church, we reinforce it. Whatever we're studying as adults, we do that on house church nights, Sunday or Wednesdays, and kids are doing the same. It's really a mirror, so that, I was in student ministry for many years, and then the statistics where a kid graduates from high school and doesn't go to church because everything else was so different than student ministry. But for us here, it's just a continuum from kids to students to adults. Like, they're doing the same thing. I mean, age appropriate, but they're doing the same thing. Peter, I have my thoughts on some things that I see in the church that are beautiful, and some things I see in the church that are broken. And I'm spending my life. I don't think my job is to go around pointing out everything that's wrong with everyone and criticizing it. So I'm just trying to go after what I think is right. I think there are other people doing things differently than us that are really beautiful too. Of course, if I felt like those are the better ways, then I would do that. But I still celebrate so much of what I see happening around the nation and our world. But there are some things that I am concerned about in the Big C church, national church landscape. I can articulate those. Do you have some concerns as you travel churches? I know you see a lot of beauty, but are there some things that you're concerned about? I mean, you have a view into more churches than probably anybody listening to this podcast. You see a lot of beautiful things. Do you see some things that concern you in the church world?
Well, absolutely. I see different churches of all kinds, small shape, of every color you could think of, And yes, there's something that really concerned me, For example, one of them is content. Like they feel like they've done everything and they just nothing else to really do. And us living in the world today, like, man, you got to pursue and share the gospel a little more than before.
Yeah.
And when going to church where they are laid back and kind of that isn't their first passion, yes, you worry like, man, are these, are they being shepherded?
Yeah.
Are they able to really in the culture they live in and really with the Bible they be able to really reconcile both of them, and that's one of my worry. The other one is more of a corporate world. Like you get to go to church and it's no different than the corporate company that is next door.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're like, man, if we are to act and do things just because it's how we have to do, just like a next corporate, we are losing the human side, but also we are losing on convicting people of what the Lord's word says, because we are so much on the structure and how to that we've forgotten, like, how do we, the average Joe, the person who just walked in our church for the very first time, like, how do we reach, how do we share the gospel that is meaningful, not the checks we have to check. We check this, we have good Sunday, good sermon, good singing,
right.
At the end of the day, if that's a structure that we have, but we've lost the soul that came in that needs to be fed, are we really doing what God has ordained us to do? For me, those are the fears sometimes or the concern that I have to the next church. The other third one is, in the real world I live in, I live in a neighborhood where everyone looks at the next neighbor. What car did they get? What swimming pool do they have? That sometimes I get to see that in the churches themselves.
That's right.
What's church next door doing that we can't do? Rather than sometimes just really say we're gonna teach the gospel, and also too we're gonna come alongside them and say what can we do that you don't do that we can be there for you.
That's
rather
good.
than a competition or I gotta do what they're doing.
That's a good word. And I think that some pastors who would be listening to this could identify with all of those things. And in my life, I've had to take this flesh of comparison to other people and just continue to crucify it. That's part of the daily thing where I would crucify my flesh of comparison to people. And I haven't struggled so much by looking at another church and saying, "Oh, we're better than you." But I have struggled with other churches that I feel like, man, you're so much further down the road than we are, or this pastor is so much more gifted than I am, and comparing myself to that person. And it's almost gotten me out of the game at times, I mean, it's taken my passion and my energy so much, it's discouraged me to the point that there have been times where I've wanted to quit over the years. I'm much better now, but I've wanted to quit over the years because I just thought, man, I can never be as good as so-and-so. And I have a real heart for pastors who are struggling with that, and I actually think most pastors do. When we were really little, when we started, of course, everybody for me was better, healthier, stronger, wiser. I had to keep changing my mind. But as our church got bigger, the people to compare myself against, that got smaller. But but that the pain didn't get smaller. Right. It wasn't like, oh, we're in the top 0.0 whatever size of churches now, so there's less people to compare myself to. It was a heart issue. It was a flesh issue. It was a pride issue. And so thankfully God has, just by his grace continued to work that out of me. So I still have to deal with it to a degree, but I have more joy and more peace and more contentment than I've ever had. And there are still plenty of people who are doing things way better than I am or bigger than I am or making more impact. That hasn't changed. It's just, and my drive and passion hasn't changed. I'm as passionate as I've ever been. Right. But thankfully, God sanctified this out of me a little bit. And I'll let him keep doing it because I don't want to live with that kind of discouragement, Do you see some pastors that are living with that comparison discouragement?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They will go beyond or take on what they are not, God hasn't ordained for them to have. That they get to put that pressure on their congregation, but also on their finances because they are trying to get here rather than to say, hey, here's what God has given us. How do we get to use this? I love, there's something you've done that I really, everywhere I go, I talk about you. The churches that are trying to build and saying, hey, what if you could think of your church rather than opening on a Sunday, but opens every day of the week?
Yeah, like your building, you mean?
Absolutely, building. Like, hey, rather than always thinking about a building we can use on a Sunday. Like,
that's right.
Hey, how can we think of something that can bless the community, but also we can have it open every day of the week? And for me, that's something that lets us kind of move out of a kind of church world, but to say, hey, how can we think of it more of a resource center? How can our church be a resource center to the community and those need? And that's really been a brilliant thing to watch. And I hope other pastors, rather than close Monday to Friday, what ways can they really, as they build, as they grow, think of, how their church can be a community center?
I think the church has had bad stewardship in primarily two things. One, like spiritual gifting. We've made the clergy, the paid staff, they do all the work, and we've taken it away from the people. We've elevated pastors and separated them, and that's why house church for us is distributing leadership back to people. But I also think not only misuse of spiritual gifts, but also misuse of space. Like church buildings are used for a couple of hours a week. And there are organizations in our city that are dying for a place. And so, that's why for us, we designed our building intentionally where it could be shared with our city. Like we have people walking in here for events going, what is this place? And you have to look to go, does a church meet here? That's why I like to tell our church sometimes, we borrow our own building on Sunday.
Right.
And then we share it with ministries in our city throughout the week. And then we steward it because we designed it like a venue. So a company can come rent it out for 4 days and it'll pay for a month.
Right.
But they won't do that if Noah's Ark's on the wall.
Absolutely.
And so we'll pop up things for Sunday if we need something like that, which we don't. But then the rest of the week, man, it can be used. So I agree with you, Peter. I really get sad driving by empty spaces that could be shared with your city. I think churches should redesign their building, redesignate its use, and share it, and rent it out.
Absolutely. It blesses the community, but also blesses their church as well.
You're right.
A place to meet, a place to feel safe and grow, not just your church, but your community as well.
I'd love for maybe you to ask me a question about pastoring or the church. You're with pastors, you know them well. Pastors trust you. One, you have that spirit about you that people trust you. And as you and I have talked, pastors will tell you things and talk to you openly. They trust you, and they should, because you're trustworthy. But is there anything that you're like, hey, what about this? Or do you think about this? Anything for a lead pastor of a local church? Anything you think about that you'd like to ask me? If not, that's all right. We'll move on.
Oh, yes. I would like to ask, absolutely.
Do it.
I get to meet pastors who are in control of anything you could think of, and I want to ask, how have you gone around delegating rather than you doing a 99.9? How have you gone around to make sure that you let people serve as God has gifted them?
Well, that was hard for me at first because I think especially when we planted, the people who were planting with me, they didn't really get what where we are now, they didn't see it. There was culture I wanted to put in, structure I wanted to put in. So I would say for our first probably 3 or 4 years, I did not let go of barely anything. Because I knew if we do exist very long, and I wasn't sure that we would, but if we did exist, that we needed to set a course. And so until I knew that our culture was set, I held on to it. This is how I know that culture is set. When I explain it to people, they're like, how do you know when culture is set? This is how I know. When the founder tries to change something and the people within that organization wouldn't let it happen,
right,
that culture is set.
Right.
If I try to change our church now, if I try to move our diverse house churches to become homogenous communities, if I try to change our Sundays to be like a production and a show, move away from utter simplicity, if I try to move away to topical kind of thematic teaching, away from, like, I wouldn't be allowed to do it. It would create mayhem here. Our culture is stronger than my leadership here. And so once our culture was set, I started getting really free to delegate things, because now culture is my voice in those places. So, for example, right now, while you and I are talking, on the other side of that wall, we'll probably hear each other's voices murmuring. There is one of our leaders is in a meeting with all of our primary leaders. Everything in our church that's led is in that meeting right now. They set an annual approach to things that we pray through and work through together. And then monthly, we're looking at how we're doing on those things. Are we making progress? Are we healthier? Are we heading in the right direction? Like, I'm not even in that meeting right now. And that's a significant meeting.
Right.
So I trust the guy who's leading our people. I trust those people. So, I had a few minutes while you were doing something else. I stepped in there. I listened. I asked a couple of questions. But then I step out, and I know it'll be just fine. So I think once culture got set, I feel real relaxed. Like, I don't lead our staff at all. I don't have a meeting with any of them for an entire month in July. And we don't miss anything. Mm-hmm. I couldn't do that for like our first 7 or 8 years.
5.
But now I step away from that. I rethink about things. I have time to heal a little bit, rest, write some stuff that I can't write throughout the year. So, all I know is I have very little contact individually with leading our team. I just lead the people who lead our team. So I think that's one of the ways that I've shown delegation. Like this morning, you were in our team meeting. We're going to have a time of prayer. We're going to spend some time in the Word. I love leading that. It's sort of the way I disciple our staff. But as far as the work stuff, I'm just up here with the general direction. And I love it now. I think everybody else likes that I'm more out of it.
It takes away the stress, I'm sure. I have this question that I want to ask you. Every church I've been at, or most of them, there are things they try to run away from. So, for example, dentists, clinics, like we've kind of let the world kind of, hey, that's something that people who are doctors run on the other side. But for me, there's something unique that you get to do, that I get to see what missionaries did hundreds of years ago in Africa. Every missionary who came put a school and a clinic, a hospital,
Yeah.
And to see that in the United States is kind of really odd and unique. Like, I visited you. I got to see the clinic you're putting up behind here. And for me, that has really not kind of really changed my way of thinking, but I was like, how did you even think about bringing what is impossible to the outside world, to bring it in? I'm a single foster dad. My kids most of the time don't get the best services they can.
Yeah.
Why? Because nobody can provide that. You have primary insurance, you get it. But if you have Medicaid, we're questionable.
Yeah.
But for me to get to see a church go beyond what the church is and say, we also want to be, your name kind of already sits so, but how did you get to put a clinic at your church?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. Well, first, I would say the ethos of our church is to find gaps that are not being met in our community and try to fill them. So we primarily work with partners, But if there's a space where a partner isn't fixing something in our community, we're going to start something. And then we knew we have space in our building. And believe me, there are things that we could use that space for. I mean, we're out of space, and we have, as you know, a massive facility. So, like, we could use that space for other things, but we protected it. What we knew is that we're going to use this space to meet some needs in our community that aren't being met. Right. So we protected the space, and then we were praying through what to do. We had a couple of ideas to work with refugees that we were going to use the space for. As we kept going down that road, the complexity of that kept elevating, and we found some alternatives that we could do. Yeah. And some of those things we're helping with, some of those things we haven't done yet. So, but we realized that's going to be tough. At the time we were praying and investigating and pushing down a road, there's a doctor in our church. She and her husband came to us and said, guys, we have been praying about this. Would it be possible for this space to be used for that? And so as we began talking and investigating, we decided that we would go after it. So there were two massive hurdles. There are other hurdles, but the two biggest were, one, becoming a licensed clinic. Like, we are licensed by the Texas Medical Board.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, like, under the roof of a church building, and, you know, it's pretty unheard of. There are some things that come close to it, but we're not like a partner organization. Like, we created here under our umbrella a nonprofit that is a Texas Medical Board clinic approved. And like, I can't even be on the board of it because you can only have medical doctors. Right. So all the medical doctors that are on the board are from our church. And it's a legit clinic. You've seen it. Oh, yeah. And then financially, it was going to cost about $650,000 to build out, and then about $600,000 a year to run. So we raised funds to build it out, and then we did build it out, and then now we have to raise funds to run it, and we're only doing that ourselves. Our church is footing the entire build now. At some point, we want this to become more of a community clinic. Right. And because it's a separate thing, like even companies in our community could donate to that, even when they can't donate to a church. And the cool thing, Peter, is, like, if you came in August, which, by the way, I think it'd be cool if you could be here for this event.
I'll show it to you. I would love to.
We have a thing called Back to School Better. So the way we think here is, you know, years ago we were giving backpacks to kids back to school, but I thought if a family can't afford a backpack of school supplies, and it's expensive, it's like $100 for all the school supplies in the back. If you can't afford a backpack, you probably can't afford some other things.
Correct.
And so maybe a back-to-school haircut or back-to-school pair of shoes or some clothes or whatever else. And so we created a thing called Back to School Better. And all the nonprofits that we work with as a church, they will come here on that day, and we will literally give thousands of haircuts and thousands of pairs of shoes and thousands of, you know, outfits for school. And then we bring them all through the clinic. I mean, last year was our first time. It wasn't even open yet. We said, hey, pretty soon it'll be open a day a week and then 3 days a week. And this year when we bring them through, you know, they're going to see there's doctors in there, nurses. It's not a hypothetical thing. Like, we want to serve the most vulnerable in our community. And frankly, I get a little frustrated that every church isn't doing something like this. I'm like, what are y'all doing?
There's like, I've seen two. You're the second one from a different one in Alabama that truly serves. And that's kind of, for me, what I love about Church Project. Like, you for the souls, you want to teach the gospel. People can learn and grow and know Christ. But also, you're concerned about their bodies, you know? Yeah. You're concerned about their health. That's really unique in a way that I've never seen before, you know? My maybe last question I would like to ask is, I know you. You have a brain of, how do I say? It's always on the go. It's always running. Yeah. And you're always thinking far ahead, you know? And I love hanging out with you. Like, I feel like I can gain a million ideas because I'm just listening to you, you know? Like, how has the Lord really gifted you ways to find people that will actually hear your goals, your dreams, and actually fulfill them? Like, how has that been possible? I know you can't do it by yourself, you know, but how have you rallied people to truly share what's going on in your, you know, bird's eye ego, looking down and say, man, I love to see this. And for me, watching for the last, you know, I've known him for 13 years, to see that actually happen,
Yeah.
things that I've had you say, that you see them happen. Like, how have you been able to make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, well, thanks for asking that question. And you reminded me today when we pulled in the parking lot that the last time you were here, or maybe 2 times ago, or you were here the day when I was making a phone call.
Right, I was on the phone call and you're looking for a few $1 million. I'm like, is that happening? Yeah, I mean.
And it happened. And we bought a property, and I told you, hey, Peter, the dream of that was let's get the property next door and fill it up with adults who have severe special needs because they were getting kicked out of a place.
Correct, yeah.
Down the street.
But that's that's the uniqueness that really made me really, not in a way like really humble. Like he's a pastor running to save the lives of others. Like you're not benefiting from.
No,
you
no.
are in some way, but really it is not about your church. It isn't about
That's right.
so much about the people that have always been there and say, I don't want them to be displaced in some way, that you wanted to provide for them. Like for me, that's what I want to ask. Like, how does your board, deal with your never-ending brain working? Like, how do they come alongside? How do you find people to make sure they execute those dreams that God is bringing your way?
Yeah. I mean, it's an insightful question. And I will say, it's been one of my most hurtful things in my life. And then it's been one of the most encouraging things in my life. The hurtful part is, I think, there are very few. I like to say there are very few pioneers. Like when people go plant a church or they start an organization, they get like angry at people for not helping them. And I'm like, hey, look, there are very few pioneers. There are very few people who are willing to go, I'll go risk my life, my money, my family, and do that with you, my years, my time. I mean, there are very few pioneers. And so if you're a pioneer, you're going to feel lonely. Because I get it. I mean, life is hard enough, and they got too much going on to go risk it all to help you start something that's in your head, but they haven't seen it yet. So starting something until it gets really stable, it's fragile, and it's lonely, and it's hard. And so I have had in those phases people very close to me, not believe in me, and not support me, and not help me when they could have helped me. And that's been really hurtful. I get it on the one hand, but I'm like, man, if you would have just helped me.
Yeah.
I knew it was, and now those people, I remember I had some early on conversations with people who I'm like, hey, this is what I think is going to happen. And nothing had happened yet. But they were like, I don't think that's going to happen. And I wish you well, but I can't be a part of it. And I remember saying to one small group of people, I said, I love you all, but one day you're going to wish that you had been a part of this beautiful thing,
right.
But you're not going to have any part in it. Mm-hmm. And so I've had plenty of those stories. But then on the other hand, now I have some people who they see this in me, like our elders, our board, especially our executives on our leadership team, probably our entire staff now. For a long time, we had staff that didn't see it. They didn't even like it. Mm-hmm. But now we have people who get it, and they know what I'm here for. And I think it's recognizing each other's giftings, right? Like when people talk about the APEST gifting, like apostle, prophet, evangelist, shepherd, teacher, where do all these giftings fit? Like our elders know we're equals, but they know my unique role as one of our elders. Our executives know this is Jason's unique role. So I think we really value each other, and they know, I'm here working alongside of all of us, but it's not an authoritarian thing as much as it is a unique thing. And so now I have people who maybe enjoy me and embrace me and accept me,
Right.
and like me. But I haven't always had that. And so it just takes time to build that team. And now there will be people who come into our church and they lead that way in the corporate world. And they come here and they're like, well, we see this in you and we want to be a part of that.
Right.
But it took a long time for that to happen. Right. So it is more fun once you cross those thresholds. But I think very few people actually cross that threshold and get here.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thanks for asking that. I feel like you care about me and seeing that. Thank you.
I do. I mean, you care about me, absolutely. I've known you for these years. Every time there's something amazing I want to do, I'm like, Jason, what do you think?
Yeah.
Most time you really been there for me. But this week you've gone an extra mile. I don't know. I wanted to ask you on Saturday, why me? Why me that you listen to the needs and somehow you said, I had shared with you the car before,
Yeah.
Remember the last time I was here?
Yeah.
But I didn't press on. But this time you kind of said, Peter, I want to make sure that I can bless you. But you didn't ask the elders, you didn't ask anyone, and somehow you believed, and I believed that. And so it was shocking to walk outside and see there's a car that I dreamt about for all these years that you provided for us. Like, what made you make an instant decision in a heartbeat for my family and for my kids?
Well, what you're referring to for people who are listening, and I told you before this that I wasn't going to bring it up. It'd be your story to share, but I'll give clarity now to it. Saturday night I had dinner, my wife Brooke and I, and our son Ty, and you and your kids, and you had told me that you wanted to adopt the two siblings of one kid that you're in the adoption process with, but you couldn't begin that process until you had a car that could seat 8. And I asked you why, because I don't live in your foster care world. Right. We have a lot of people in our church who do, but I don't understand the nuances.
Wow.
And so you told me, because I'm a single parent, I have to have enough seats in a car for every underage kid in our house. And I would have never thought of that before. And in order for you to have 2 more kids, you had to have a car that would seat 8.
Right.
You plus the 7 kids
right.
underage who will be living in your house.
Right.
And I thought, if this is a reason why 2 kids can't have a home, we have to figure this out. And so, at dinner that night, I was overwhelmed with knowing we have to figure it out. And I didn't know how we were going to go about it, but the next morning, while you and I are having a conversation on the stage in front of a lot of people in our first gathering, I just knew we have to do this. When you came before, my heart broke, and I understood your problem a little bit, but I also knew we weren't capable of doing that.
Right.
Because I was in this. I was like, guys, we have to meet this special needs community need and raise a lot of money quick, and I knew that we wouldn't be able to do both at the same time. And so I actually do have a sense of what our body is able to do right now, what's pulling at them, but I know how our board thinks and our elders think, and so I know a one-time thing like we did for you that's within reach. I know that we're all for it, and because we work together all the time.
Right, but that's kind of your nature. Like I've never had you have an issue and say, okay, someone is gonna cover that. You've always that person say, how do we meet the needs?
Yeah.
Even when you and I were working with. You're supporting Compassion National, you said the goal, you said, I want to see this many kids sponsored. And we looked at your church, you're like, are you sure you have enough? But you believed in what your church could do.
Yeah.
You believed in how many kids your church can bless.
Yeah.
And for us, we've always found you unique in a way that you think always beyond what people see every day,
Yeah.
And wondering like, how do you get that gift of always discerning to know it matters to God, and I don't care what you're gonna do, we're gonna do it.
Man,
attitude for sure.
Don't we all want to live that way, actually? I mean, you're living that way. I mean, Peter, you're living with this reckless, radical generosity and hospitality. I mean, you'll get a call at 3 a.m. Can you take a human being into your home?
Yep.
And you'll say yes. And so for us, super cool that I'm able to tell our body yesterday, hey, look, we got to meet our budget this week. But above and beyond that, if you give, we're going to buy Peter a brand new, not a used, not a crappy, not a whatever. We're going to buy you a brand new, like the kind of Suburban you need, exactly how many seats. We got a call last night, hey, here's one with cloth seats. I'm like, no. Leather seats. That's what I said this morning in a text. Yeah. I'm like, no. Cloth's nice. Leather. Let's see if we can find it. And so we did, One of the guys in our team was going after it and found it. And man, you're doing that too, Peter. And it's one thing for us to, buy a new Suburban today to support you being able to adopt 2 more kids. That's our privilege to partner with you. But I mean, what we really love getting behind is the people who are doing the work. Like the whole ethos of Church Project is we don't pastor our people, we pastor our house church pastors who are pastoring our people. Yeah. And we think that way about ministry partnerships, and I think that way about you. And I mean, you're willing to say, hey man, yeah, I'll adopt 2 more kids after I've already adopted, 5. Sure, bring them on. Wow. And like we want, it's a gift to get behind somebody like you and support you. So
yes, but also I've seen like, sometimes churches think, we have a pastor, a hero, but you have a tendency of really making the least the heroes. That's something I love about you, like always making the heroes the average Joe of the people you serve. The house church, everyone I go to just amazed and content and joyful to be part of your church because you make those house churches the heroes of their community.
Yeah.
And for me, to the world where we always kind of about me, social media everywhere, me, to see for me that you invest so much in these and make them heroes, it's just rare, and we're grateful for that you get to see that in your people. And you have no idea. I always say, if this church was to go off today, there's about 50 churches that could begin from nowhere. Why? Because they have always been there,
Yeah.
It's not like they started yesterday. Those house churches could be the next church the next day if this wasn't.
Yeah, they could.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, thanks for the encouragement. It means a lot to me coming from you. John said, he must increase, I must decrease. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the ways we decrease is, like for me, my name's not on our website. It's not on our sign. I'm not trying to be invisible. I mean, I'm going to use my gifting of preaching or leadership or whatever. But like the Apostle Paul said, the more visible parts are the least important. Mm-hmm. So we say as pastors that we believe the scriptures, but do we really? I mean, am I the least important person here? That's what Paul would have said about himself. That's what he did say about himself. So if I start living like this person is more important than me, this house church pastor is more important than me, this person leading this ministry is more important than me. If we keep living that way, like Paul thought, that's why he raised up leaders and planted churches everywhere. And so I actually do believe that. Like I think I matter. Like I have a role to play in the kingdom, but I don't think I'm the most important person here.
And we see that how you live your life. I come here and you have 5 houses I have to go visit. But I don't think I've ever been in a church where they put other families that I can go be part of. And so for me that really shows the uniqueness on how you value people, but how so you make them heroes. I'm not anything special, but to say, I got a cool friend I love and I love him, but I want you to share with him. So you're gonna take him, and that is really unique that you get to share whatever you have with the people you're leading. And that's, for me, I feel like you elevate to make them the heroes of every day. And I wish every church could do that.
Well, I think all of us should be going after that more. But I'll tell you, you're leading out in this, Peter. Like you've made your life about the kids you're serving, and you're elevating their value from being devalued and unloved, and you're taking a kid and you're elevating the value. Brooke and I talked about it after dinner. I'll get emotional thinking about it. When I just saw you as a single dad, these 4 kids, they're coming to you, Daddy, I need to go to the bathroom. Daddy, my macaroni and cheese is hot. Can you blow on it? Watching you this is your life all the time. And you have laid your life down to serve other people, and you're just elevating their value above your own. And, most of the time when you're speaking, you're talking about fostering and all that. But today, I just wanted to have a conversation with you. Like, if I wasn't a pastor and you weren't doing what you're doing, like, we're still followers of Jesus, and we need to do what Jesus has called us to do. But the thing I admire about you most is you're laying your life down to serve others. And I think, and I'll close with this unless you have something else to say, I think that God has uniquely positioned you to speak into a world in a way that I don't know anyone else who can in the way that you are. There are incredible people doing things in the fostering and adopting world that you partner with and you elevate. But my hope and my prayer for you and my belief is that whatever God puts in front of you, open doors. I think that I want you out there more and more visible because we want to change foster care, fostering and adoption in America. And I think he's going to continue to use you in massive ways. And I want him to because your life's about Jesus. You're dying to yourself. You're valuing other people above yourself. That feels a lot like Jesus to me. And you're representing him well in this world. And I'm glad you're my friend. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. I hope you enjoy your new blacked out leather seat Suburban for a long time.
Church Project. That's its name right now. So we can never forget you guys. I don't know, something. But on behalf of the children in foster care, especially the families that are struggling every day, thank you for seeing them. Thank you for making them known. But also thank you for just making sure that our kids in our community are part of what your church and what you're growing as well. And we appreciate that.
Well, you have a big task in front of you. So do we. We're far from where we want to be, as you would say too, but I'm glad to be in the fight with you. I love you.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching this. Here's what we ask of you. Really just like it, subscribe, and share it. If you do that, other people can find out about it. We have conversations like this, about things like this, almost every week. I hope you have a good week. You're loved. See you soon. Thanks for spending time with us today on the Rethink and Return podcast. Here's all we ask from you. Will you subscribe to this, share this, let other people know about it? That'll help us get the message out. Share this content with other people if it's helpful to you. We're grateful for you. See you soon.